On November 24th of 1863, this house found itself at the epicenter of the fighting here on Lookout Mountain. This is the Robert Cravens house, and it was the headquarters for Edward Walthall and his brigade. And in the early morning hours of November 24th of 1863, when the Union would attack Lookout Mountain, this is where the fighting happened. It didn't happen at the summit. It happened on the Cravens property here. And today I'm going to take you along with me. We're going to hike down to some Confederate earthworks where a couple Mississippi regiments held the line here against numerous Union brigades. And we're going to just explore the grounds and see what we can learn. And it is becoming winter now, so hopefully we get a really good snapshot of the terrain here on Lookout Mountain. So here is the Robert Cravens house. Like we touched on, this is essentially the headquarters of Brigadier General Edward Walthall. He would be occupying this location. And you can see Chattanooga in the distance here. We have some beautiful monuments here. And the Confederate earthworks are about a half mile from this location on a well-defined trail. Here is the parking lot area, and the trail is right next to it. And let's go explore some Confederate earthworks and see if we can piece this battle together. It's important to note that it's also November, so a lot of the foliage and underbrush is beginning to die off. So hopefully we get a nice look at the terrain here. All right, so we're making our way down this well-defined trail here, as you can see. The Cravens house is in this direction, probably anywhere 50 to 75 yards in that location. And I wanted to show you this spot because it's pretty important. So you're going to come to essentially a Y here. We're going to stay to the right, okay? This is where the earthworks are. And just to kind of show you, piece things together here, this is where we started, and this is where we currently are. So we're going to stay to the right and follow the earthworks trail. All right. And it's pretty early in the morning here, so I have it to myself, which is always a great thing. You can explore the grounds here and really take in the sights. All right, slowly but surely we're making our way. Now, the two regiments that were sent forward to construct these earthworks and hold the line were the 24th and 27th Mississippi. So you can almost envision these men being sent forward to construct essentially their first line of defense. Now, beyond the earthworks, they would have, I think, a nearly 2-mile long line of skirmishers. But it's important to note that the Mississippi troops here just didn't have enough men to cover the ground that they were being asked to defend. And when the Union would launch their attack, they would launch it in force, and there would be depth to their attack. And several Union brigades, I believe 3, would be assaulting in this general area here. And standing in their way was Edward Walthall's brigade, and then standing in front of Edward Walthall's brigade were the men of the 24th and 27th Mississippi, holding the line here. So I think we're about halfway. Wanted to show you more of the terrain here as well. You can kind of see the layout of the land here, the well-defined path we're walking on. Now I'm going to pan back up to my right, and the summit of Lookout Mountain is in that direction here. Just to kind of paint the picture for you here, and we're continuing our trek. All right, and here we are. The Confederate works here on Lookout Mountain. Very cool. You can just make some of them out right there. Wow. Now, I've been down to this location before, but there is nothing better than coming to a physical location and then you actually have the fortifications still intact. And it just really helps you piece this battle together and kind of, at least you can orient yourself as to the Union attack and see where obviously the Confederate defenders were here. But here is some remnants of the earthworks here along Lookout Mountain. Now, I don't know which regiment was manning this particular spot, But like we touched on, the 24th and 27th Mississippi were manning these works out in front of the Confederate line here. And this sign here, heavy slashings of timber outside the works. So what that means is there was essentially obstructions in front of the works to try and slow down the advance of the attackers. And you can see here, it's a pretty good position. We're on some high ground here and it slopes down. Very cool. Just moved down the works a bit, and this spot here offers a better view of the terrain here and how it slopes down. Remember, during the battle, a lot of this underbrush probably wasn't here, especially in late November of 1863. But it's also important to note that you can see the remnants of the works here and where they're oriented somewhat in this direction. The Union attack came from more in this direction here. And just giving you another shot of the works here. And there are fields of fire. This is a really cool spot, and as you can see, I have it to myself. Beautiful area, peaceful, despite what unfolded here in November of 1863. But it's pretty cool because I'm here in November of 2025, so to be in a spot almost to the day it happened is pretty neat. But we're gonna hop over, I'm gonna try and make my way through some of this and show you this battle from the Union perspective real quick, and then we'll wrap things up here today. Now, in doing some research for this video, I came across a first-hand account from J.H. Castles of Company H of the 24th Mississippi. And he stated that the pickets from both armies were so close that before the Union began their attack, they shouted out to the Confederates to take cover. Again, this is an account directly from a soldier that was here. So the fact that, you know, we have this information, and it just shows it's just a little ounce of humanity between both sides here, that before the killing really starts. And I thought that was pretty cool to share with you. And you can almost envision being a Confederate soldier. On the morning of the 24th, the visibility was almost zero. There was a heavy fog in this area. So imagine manning these works. You hear the advanced skirmish line begin firing. You really don't know where they're coming from because your visibility is zero. Imagine being a Confederate soldier holding this line, knowing there's an overwhelming Union force headed this way. I believe it was 3 Union brigades essentially sweeping through this portion of the field here towards the Cravens house. And you're just 2 regiments holding the line here. And how much manpower do you have available after Chickamauga? And now we've been surrounding Chattanooga for over a month now. So think about how much men we truly have available here and what is coming towards these men holding this line here. And this is why I love history. We can come to the exact spot and sit in the exact spot where the 24th and 27th Mississippi were holding the line. And that really brings history to life. Now, one of the Union brigades that was tasked with assaulting this portion of the line here was the brigade of David Ireland. Now, if you don't know who David Ireland is, he was the former commander of the 137th New York, who played a critical role in the Union defense on July 2nd of 1863 on Culp's Hill at the Battle of Gettysburg. Some credit him with saving the Union at Gettysburg. He was holding the Union right, and a lot of exploits go to Chamberlain and the 20th Maine on the Union left, but David Ireland's role at Culp's Hill was extremely important. But now here he is a few months later at Lookout Mountain leading a brigade. And within his brigade was the 102nd New York, and one of the men in the 102nd New York was Major Gilbert Elliott. Now, as Major Elliott was leading some of his men, shots would ring out. The picket lines have now come in contact with each other, and Elliott would begin ordering his men to return fire. And in the chaos here, Elliott would be hit with a mortal wound, and he would be the first Union casualty here on Lookout Mountain. Now, once Elliott was hit, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Avery would come to his aid. Moments later, he was hit. So now the 102nd New York, that just began their assault, has lost 2 of their 3 senior officers. And like we said, the attack is just beginning. We have just hit the Confederate picket line. So already the casualties are beginning to stack up, especially for the Union officers. This is a pretty neat part of the trail here. This is a little further down from the works that we saw earlier in the video, but I wanted to at least walk a little past the works here and just show you some of the terrain that both sides really had to contend with. You know, this isn't an easy position to man and fortify either. You have to come up here on foot and construct a lot of these fortifications here. And of course the Union had to come up here as well and assault the positions. Just a really neat spot that doesn't obviously get a lot of attention, but here we are loosely in the path of David Ireland's brigade. And remember, they would be coming from this general direction here, advancing from left to right on your camera, and we're going to make our way back to the Confederate works.